We call it OGCD, or Only Guinness Could Do.
What does the future of beer look like? We've got some ideas, starting with Fonio. This ancient miracle grain opens up a world of possibilities, driving innovation and supporting communities. In this series, we're collaborating with our brewery friends from across the globe, and you know what? These beers are really going to shake things up.
Hey there, it's Garrett Oliver here, Brewmaster of Brooklyn Brewery. Now I'm sure the place where I stand today needs no introduction. To be sure, it is grand to be here at the home of Guinness, one of the best known breweries in the world and one of my absolute personal favorites. After all, a man cannot live on Brooklyn beer alone. Now, Guinness may be synonymous with its Irish birthplace, but did you know that their first overseas brewery outside of Ireland and the UK was in Nigeria? In fact, Guinness has a long history with Africa, its first beer heading over to the continent as far back as 1827. Now, there's no sidestepping the fact that Guinness originally made its way to Africa along a colonial path, but today, many Africans consider Guinness to be at least as African as it is Irish. So a Fonio beer brewed by Guinness is pretty perfect in every way, and my African friends are pretty excited about it. But before we dive into the black liquid gold of this collaboration, let's step behind these iconic gates and go back in time to 1827.
So we're here with Evelyn in the inner sanctum of Guinness. You're originally a brewer, and now this has been entrusted to you.
I don't think there's many archivists out there who are both an archivist and a brewer. So let me show you this original recipe book that we hold in the archive, dated the 14th of December 1801, and the beer is West India Porter.
That's the forerunner of Foreign Extra Stout, the FES.
I call this the granddad recipe of FES. There's a much higher hop rate, hops being the natural preservative, and definitely a much higher ABV rate. This is a beer that was brewed to travel. It started being exported to Africa as early as 1827. And we have the record of the first export to Sierra Leone on the 19th of December.
I assume it wasn't going to the general population.
Guinness would have been following a lot of the military trade routes. So our first exports of Guinness to the Caribbean would have followed those trading routes. When we started brewing in Nigeria, we started using sorghum, which was a huge innovation for Guinness at the time, and setting up Guinness farms back in 1985.
For me, it's really cool to bring you guys Fonio, which has its own 5,000-year history. I like to think I'm helping continue what is already a Guinness tradition in African grains, but now a new one. All right, let's jump right in. Looking at the history of Guinness being brewed in Africa, how are those beers kind of inspiring what you wanted to do here with Fonio?
If you look at what we've done, we call it OGCD, or Only Guinness Could Do. So with Fonio, and a Fonio Stout was always going to be unique to Guinness, using our Guinness yeast to make it a truly original beer that, as I say, only Guinness could do.
What is it that you find interesting about Fonio?
As a brewer, with some of the different flavors that you can get out of it, flavors you wouldn't typically expect to come out of a grain.
When I tasted it for the first time, I actually found a really nice fruit spice that balanced out the stout really, really beautifully.
We took a typical stout recipe. We have the base malt, we have some caramel malt, we have some roasted barley and a little bit of chocolate malt, but we subbed out some of that base malt for 15% of the Fonio.
Those tropical fruit notes, that white wine characteristic, there was a little bit of concern that the roast might overwhelm it, but the Fonio really does come through.
Well, enough talking about beer, let's have some.
Absolutely.
All right.
We're a global brand with a local heartbeat. So it's not just about exporting the beer out of Dublin. We really want to make a contribution to the society wherever we're present.
Guinness has such provenance in brewing, and we've been innovating for hundreds of years, so it makes sense that we would be at the forefront of something like the Fonio beer.
This is where this collaboration comes to life. And when you're working with Brooklyn, that means a New York artist. Kervin Brousseau, a Haitian American, brought some real vibrant life to this can. Notes to New York, tips of the cap to the Caribbean culture, tips of the cap to West African culture. And of course, the star of the show, Fonio itself. It's certainly about beer, but it's also about building community. You know, we see that in the States through the work that we do at the Open Gate Breweries. We continue to find ways through beer to make a difference.
Guinness was also one of the favorite beers of Michael James Jackson, who was the biggest beer writer in the world. And he would have loved to see what we're doing, because this is actually supporting the Michael James Jackson Foundation. And what the MJF does is provide scholarships for technical education in brewing and distilling for people of color. This is really important. Well, our journey here wouldn't be complete without a taste of that famous Irish hospitality. Not that we need an excuse to go to a pub. Cheers.
Cheers.